Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Fame with Tiffany Renee, Freedom of Artistic Means of Expression. It is New Year's Eve, December 31st, hours away from the new year 2022. And I know a lot of people are anticipating a lot of great things, which is wonderful. In 2022, a lot of people are making preparations and for getting their mind right and getting things in order and kind of making their lists of, things that they want to do. And I'll be doing mine later. They are not New Year's resolutions, but it will be like a clearing list, a list of things that I want to let go of that are more internal than external. And then I will be doing a scripting exercise that Brown and Bendy's channel recommended today. And it resonated with me. So I think I will try to do, I don't script, I script. I used to do it every single night consistently for several months. And then I kind of got away from it where I just kind of do it a couple times a week, or if there's really, really something that I want. But I do want to start off the new year getting back into scripting consistently again, but a different way, because everyone who I've learned scripting from, it works for them tremendously. And there has been things that I've scripted that have worked for me 100%. However, I think maybe I wasn't doing it necessarily in the most effective way. And so I learned some new techniques today, and I'm definitely going to utilize that. Anywho, this is a safe space. No negative Neds, Nellies, Nancys, and et cetera, et cetera. This is a safe community for all people who just want to connect to their mind, their body, their spirit, and just get enlightened and have some awareness happen. And we just want to talk about metaphysics, quantum physics, spirituality, love, life, relationships, and everything that will help you elevate your vibration and operate from the highest part of you, which is the whole part of you. So in this video, and yes, check out the ring, okay? I got this from my aunt. Well, I went with my aunt to the flea market when I was home for Thanksgiving back in Ohio. And there's this flea market that she takes me to a lot of the times, and I found it there. And I was like, oh, this is what my engagement ring is going to look like. Okay. I mean, it's a sapphire. It's big. It's beautiful. Except mine will probably be like a clear diamond or something. Hey, calling it into existence, okay? So I've just got like my Wonder Woman. Like, we're just blued out today. I've got blue leggings on, like blue eyeliner. It's just, we're just doing blue, festive, NYE, okay? So I don't want to make this video too long, because I do want to make a couple more before the evening is over. And this first one, I want to start because I think it's so profound. And I found the link. It was bookmarked. I was looking for something completely different. And I was typing in the words and I was misspelling something. And I was about to hit the backspace to spell it correctly, but then it gave me these results, I guess in my previous searches or something. And then had the like little star mark or something. Like I had bookmarked this article. When I tell you, I have zero recollection of ever seeing this article. So how it got bookmarked, I don't know. It's an article, because I'm going to read a part of it to you because I want to talk about this. It's an article that was written like in 2016 by a man named Amir Ganad. And he's a leadership, cultural speaker, author, coach. And it's called The Massive Power of Assuming Positive Intent. And I read the article. It's not long, it's short. And it's on a LinkedIn. It's on LinkedIn, right? That's where it came from. So I will type out the link in the description box, so you guys, can feel free to go read it for yourself, check it out, print it off. So I printed it, and I just want to talk about this for a second, because he did an experiment with a group of people, and he came to a conclusion that uh, something that society has that's, I guess, part of social psychology is called the fundamental arbitration error. Fundamental fundamental attribution error, not arbitration. That's legal stuff. Fundamental attribution error. Okay, this will be the title of this particular video. Fundamental attribution error. So basically, he did this study where he had two groups of people, and well, he had a group of people, and he had a theory. So he had one theory called Theory X and one called Theory Y. And basically, Theory X was the group of people who were unreliable, who you would consider lazy, who you would consider untrustworthy, or et cetera, quote unquote, bad people, was Theory X. And then there was Theory Y, which was people who you could depend on, who were compassionate, who were reliable, and all these wonderful things, i.e., good people. Okay. So he asked this group of people, raise your hand if you are a Theory X type of person, if you're a lazy, undependable, whatever type of person. And like nobody raised their hand. Nobody. And then he said, okay, I'm going to ask a different question. I'm going to ask you, raise your hand if you occasionally exhibit behaviors of Theory X people. If you occasionally exhibit behaviors of being untrustworthy, non-compassionate, etc., or considered a bad person, basically. If you occasionally exhibit behaviors of what you would call a bad person. Almost everybody raised their hand, right? So, sorry, I live on a main road, so if you hear these loud engines, my apologies. So he thought that was pretty interesting. And he said that I further explained that this is because, this is his reason, we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their behavior, a phenomenon known by social psychologists as fundamental attribution error. The same tendency to assume the worst about others and absolve ourselves of responsibility tends to dominate our thoughts in autopilot mode. Unless we are intentional about assuming positive intent, we tend to question other people's intentions, which often leads to a whole different set of attitudes and actions than what is required to create and grow fulfilling relationships and deliver extraordinary results. It also results in millions of dollars worth of wasted time and effort that go into designing elaborate checks and balances for the 5% who would abuse the system rather than the 95% who wouldn't. So I thought that was so profound. And the part where he says, we judge ourselves by our intentions and we judge other people by their behaviors for the same things, basically. And I'm like, that's deep. I want to talk about that. I know we're already at 10 minutes, so this may be a little bit of a long video, but I really wanted to dive into that, because how true is that? How true is it that, going back to my previous video I did about blame versus responsibility and accountability. How people don't want to take accountability and take responsibility for the roles that they play and the things that they do, especially if they're detrimental or harmful things for other people or abusive things to other people. Because when we do them, we have a justification for it. We're going to justify why we reacted in a negative way. We're going to be able to say, well, I only did it when I, you know, gossiped about this person. When I said something mean about this person, I said it because I was feeling slighted because of whatever. And so therefore, I felt that I had the right to say something nasty about this person back because this person had said something nasty in the past or whatever. But then when someone else does it, there's like no mercy. It's like, oh my God, that person talked trash about me. Oh, well, that person is this and this and this, and this person is canceled. This person is WXYZ. Their intention for maybe talking trash about you goes out the window. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear their explanation as to why they did what they did. All you see is the fact that they did it. You just see the behavior. You don't care why they did it. But when it's the other way around and you did something, it's like, oh, well, don't look at the behavior. Don't look at what I did. Look at why I did it. You know what I mean? And he's absolutely right. It's a way to deflect taking responsibility. If you can deflect taking responsibility for something that you did, which is really just the ego, you know, trying to use itself as a defense mechanism and all that stuff. I get it. But that can be dangerous and detrimental to you as the individual because you're not exempt from messing up. You're not exempt from being nasty to people. Like, we've all done it. We've all been in situations where we said something or did something that we're not proud of. And especially things that we know were not okay. You know what I mean? And when you get called out on it, why is it that the first initial knee-jerk reaction we have a lot of the time is to get defensive about it? If you did something to me, or you said something that I thought was out of line or I thought was hurtful, even if I didn't bring it up to you at that moment, when I bring it up to you, okay, and it doesn't matter if you're my friend, if you're family, if you're a coworker, it doesn't matter, okay? If you're in my life and you did something to me and it hurt me, or you said something to me and it hurt me, and I tell you, hey person, when you said WXYZ, it hurt me, and this is why. It made me feel unseen. It made me feel like you were being condescending. It made me feel less, that you thought less than of me or whatever the reason is. And instead of that person taking responsibility and saying, you know what, I can see where you're coming from, and I can see how maybe that would have hurt you. I can see your perspective, and I am sorry. It was not my intention to hurt you. I apologize for my behavior. I apologize for what I said, and I apologize that it hurt you. I beg your pardon. Instead of doing that out the gate, many people, their first reaction is, I ain't say that. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I don't remember saying that. So, or, well, even if I did say it, you're going to feel how you want to feel about it. I can't control how you feel about it. If you feel mad about it, okay, then you're mad about it. That's what he's talking about. Because when you do something, when we all do something, but when you do something to somebody and they bring it to your attention, instead of just taking accountability and saying that I hurt somebody or that I did this thing or I messed up here and there, we get defensive a lot of the time. And we take it as an attack. Like, this person is attacking me. When this person isn't attacking you, they're just bringing to your awareness, they're making you aware that you violated one of their boundaries. And if you're getting upset because somebody's telling you that you did something or said something that violated their personal boundaries, then you might want to take a hard look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why? Why does that strike a chord with you? Because if it was the other way around and that person did something to you, right? You wouldn't be trying to justify why they did it. You would be going for the jugular. You would only be looking at the behaviors that they did to hurt you. You would not be trying to understand why they did it. But when you do something, you want to justify why you had the right to do it, why you said whatever. Whether it's valid or not is irrelevant. It was an observation that he made. And I think that's so profound because a lot of people do it. Like I'm guilty of doing that. I'm more mindful of it now. So I do it way less than I ever have in the past. But I'm not a confrontational person. So I would just kind of suffer silently. You know what I mean? But I would feel negatively about a lot of things that people have done and said to me. And sometimes I would address it. Sometimes I would way after the fact address it, which I'm getting better at because sometimes I pick my battles. But I thought that was very, very interesting. And I thought it was worth making a video about. And he goes into what he lists as basically the how detrimental assuming negative intent does and how it can sabotage people. Because if you go into every situation thinking that the worst about somebody or thinking that somebody's out to get you, as opposed to thinking the opposite, here's his list of things that he says goes wrong with that. Here's what's wrong with that mindset. He said, first, it diverts attention away from the mission. So he says, while you're focusing on trying to figure out why other people behave the way they do and act the way they do, you're completely throwing the actual issue out the window. The actual issue never really gets solved. And we have seen examples of this on a social scale, you know, on a national scale, on a global scale, where there are some pretty serious issues going on that require people with a level head and people to listen and understand. But too many people are caught up in who is doing something, right? Who is behaving in a certain way. That is what becomes the highlight. That is what gets plastered all over the news. The behavior of what somebody did and trying to figure out why are they behaving this way. I'm not saying that that's not relevant. It has its place, but that's not helping if you're trying to get to the root cause of the issue and solve the issue, because then no one's ever talking about the issue. They're just talking about the behaviors of the people who's supposed to be solving the issue. Do you see how that's counterproductive? Okay. He also says it slows down issue resolution, which we just talked about. When we suspect negative intent, we tend to gather allies to ensure we have a strong position rather than going to the person directly. You can apply this all across the board, okay? When we suspect that somebody's out to get us, or negative intent, as he's calling it, we tend to gather allies and ensure we have a strong position rather than going to the person directly. Think about this, especially on social media, right? If somebody is doing something, let's say the government does something, or a group of people does something, right? And as an individual, you just automatically don't trust it. Oh, it's coming from the government. It's mess. I already am sending out an expectation of negative intent. I already think that whatever it is that they're doing it to hurt me, period, right? That's what you believe as an individual. So instead of just owning and accepting that that's what you personally feel and believe, you have to go out and gather other people. I think I mentioned this in my other video. You got to gather other people to agree with you, right? To support what you think the government's real intention is, because you think the government has just horrible negative intentions all the time, right? So you have to gather people and find people who also think that way. And you do that, I believe, as a form of validation, because you don't even trust that maybe your belief about this government having negative intentions is 100% true. So you need validation from other people. If other people can get on board with what you're saying, then you feel more confident that what you're saying is true. And then it's easier for you to even convince yourself that what you're believing is true. And instead of going to the person directly, that could be an individual person if it's an actual like individual to individual dynamic situation, or if it's something with your spouse or with your coworker, then yes, you can go directly to that person instead of going to the water cooler and talking about Susan and saying everything that Susan did and how she tried to throw you under the bus during the meeting when she was the project leader and you did your part and she messed up her part and she made you feel like blah, 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 blah. And you telling everybody else in the office, right? Instead, to get everyone else on your side so you can justify why you feel so negatively about Susan, how you feel like Susan was out to get you and sabotage you, instead of just going to Susan directly and just saying, hey, Susan, what happened in the meeting? Wacky idea, going to the source, right? Next, number 3, he says, it encourages bold moves. Attacking a person's character and questioning their intentions eventually drives people to play it safe and not play a big game. And I can see this out of fear. A lot of people don't say what they think. They don't say what they feel because they don't want their character attacked. They don't want to be canceled. You know what I mean? So a lot of people will repress and suppress how they really feel about things, about certain topics or issues, or even about themselves. And it shrinks people. It shrinks you. And you just want to play it safe, right? Because out of fear. Isn't that just so heartbreaking? And we shrink ourselves all the time. For what? For what? For somebody else to feel better about who we are? Number 4, it diminishes collaboration. We tend to perpetuate a silos mentality and strengthen cliques by seeking refuge and understanding in others who we believe would be on our side. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier in his point about it slows down issue resolution, about gathering allies. We literally create cliques. That's how cliques are formed, right? Most people who are in a clique are people who you have sought out or who you have attracted, who you feel comfortable with, right? Because you feel like they understand your perspective and you don't feel like they would turn on you, right? You believe that they're going to be on your side, that they're going to believe what you believe, and they're going to go hard for whatever you're going hard for, right? We do it all the time. It reduces accountability. Number 5. The drama associated with assuming negative intent on other people's part prevents us from seeing and being accountable for our own contributions to the issue. I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. The drama associated with assuming negative intent on other people's part prevents us from seeing and being accountable for our own contributions to the issue. Listen, we're all guilty of this. I'm not exempt from this. But it just reminded me of so many instances, whether it was me or whether it was someone else, where this part played out so perfectly, right? How many of you out there in YouTube land know people, or maybe it's you, maybe you've been in circumstances like this, but we have all seen this played out. We all know people who assume the worst intentions that someone may have about them, right? Or an organization or a group of people or whatever, an institution, fill in the blank. And the fact that you're focusing so much on the negative intent that this other person may have on you, you don't even see the part that you've played in causing the mess. Which is one of the things I think is kind of wrong with governments as a whole, sometimes why some social issues that should no longer be issues all across the world are still issues. And I think this is a big part of the reason that people are just assuming it's a trust issue. Like, people don't trust people anymore, right? And they think that everyone is always out to get them and someone always has a negative agenda. And if you go in leading with the fact that someone always has a negative agenda out against you, right? That all 7 billion people on the planet who you come across is going to have a negative agenda against you, and they're leading with negative intent. If you believe that, law of attraction has to make sure that you get that. You have to get it, first of all. So you're going to see more of it in your life. But what that does, what he's saying is that it prevents you from being held accountable. It prevents you from holding yourself accountable, because you will be in a perpetual state of victim mentality. You will always be seeing yourself as a victim, because it'll be it's them against me type of situation. They're out to get me. So if you always think that someone's out to get you, that means you are always the victim, which means you are always going to be able to justify your own actions and your own behaviors, right? Which is why you go easy on yourself. You don't judge yourself, because you're saying, well, I did it based off of my intentions. Forget what I did or what I said. My intention was because I don't trust them, and I'm going to get them before they can get me, or whatever. And so that you relinquish any accountability that you may have, that you may have contributed to the argument, or that you maybe contributed to the failure of the project, or that you contributed to the downfall of the company or whatever. Like, you can't just keep exonerating yourself from any accountability of any mess that comes into your life. It can't always be a hands-off approach with us. We have to assume some sort of responsibility. My opinion. And number 6, it damages relationships. Resolving differences of opinion when everyone trusts each other's intent may involve passionate debate and discussion, but they won't damage relationships. The drama associated with assuming negative intent can cause significant damage in relationships, which will take time to repair. Do you hear the 2 words that he said? When you trust each other's intent, it may involve passionate debate and discussion. There is a big difference between having a passionate debate and discussion and just being all right, knocked down, drag out, ridiculous, hollering, screaming, and just carrying on and being, no wonder nothing gets resolved that way, right? But if you have a mindset of negative intent, if you're leading, just always assuming that someone has some sort of negative intent against you, then you're automatically going to go into the meeting or whatever with your defenses up. Automatically out the gate, right? You're already going to be on guard. And when you're on guard, you're not trying to debate. You're not trying to discuss. You're trying to rattle off what you have to say, get your point across, and be done and shut it down. You're not trying to really hear what the other person is trying to say, because you've already decided that everything they're trying to say is something that's against you. It's a direct attack against you personally. And you assume that they may have not done anything. You may not even be in a circumstance that even warrants that, but you just assume that to be true because of some other limiting belief and program that you have running in your mind, probably from childhood, that you can't trust people and everyone's out to get you. And I'm going to get you before you get me. And no feelings, you know what I mean? Don't catch no feelings, only catch the bag, and you can't trust people. You can't do it's that. That's a narrative that's running, right? And you could say, well, it's true. It may have been, it can be true for some people, but it doesn't have to be true. You know what I mean? Check out my video about is what you're consuming you. I talk a lot about what you have to subscribe to and what you don't have to subscribe to. You don't have to subscribe to anything. And I'm also going to do another video talking about truth versus fact, you know what I mean, as well, to kind of segue after this. So it's a really fascinating article. I don't want to say too much about it. He does also talk about the power of assuming positive intent. He says the key keeps the organization focused on the mission. It speeds up resolution. It encourages bold moves. It instills a culture of personal accountability, which is something we are lacking as a human race. We have all different types of culture. I mean, if we could have a cancel culture, if that's not the epitome of the removal of a culture that instills personal accountability, I don't know what is. That's like the polar opposite. We're just gonna cancel it. Just cancel everything. Like, just the cancel culture in itself. It's like, how about we normalize people taking accountability? Not blame and fault. That's very different from accountability and responsibility. Check out my previous video about that. Fault/blame versus accountability and responsibility. It increases collaboration across the organizations, and it strengthens relationships. And it's not a super duper long article at all. You'll get through it in a few minutes. He does say that assuming negative intent, it takes less effort, which is true. He said it is convenient and easier to shift the blame to someone else rather than to do the work to seek, understand, and identify the real root cause of the issue. Can I get an amen for that? It is so convenient to blame somebody else. It is so convenient to shift, just to shift the fault to somebody else. It is so much easier to make everybody else have to take accountability, to point fingers and say, oh, well, you was responsible for that part. So it's so much easier to point the finger and tell everybody else to do it. What about us, though? Like, we have to point the finger at ourselves and take accountability for ourselves, right? And he said negative intent, it lets us off the hook on any contributions we may have to the issue. Blaming someone else's intent shifts the attention away from us taking responsibility we may have had for creating the issue. He reiterates this throughout the article. Assuming positive intent is perceived as being naive, being weak, and idealistic. He says, on the contrary, it takes a great deal of courage to assume positive intent and have the tough conversations to identify the real issues. I think this is very profound because think about us as human beings and what society or what we have been cultivated to believe is acceptable or not acceptable. And all of those things have been categorized. And one thing that people don't like to be associated with is anything that implies or anything that challenges their sense of personal power, right? People don't like to be disempowered. People like to be empowered. However that shows up, right? Being positive sometimes, and I think he's absolutely right, being positive sometimes, or being spiritual, being optimistic, in a weird way has kind of been lumped into that category of being disempowered, of being weak. Being someone who feels emotions and who feels feelings and can articulate the feelings that they feel. That's kind of been categorized as disempowering. And so therefore you're labeled as being weak. No one wants to express their feelings. No one wants to catch feelings. No one wants to get emotional. No one wants to, be seen as weak. No one wants to be seen as someone who's soft, whatever, right? Which is kind of odd because just as much effort goes into trying to put up this front to not be emotional and show feelings and stuff like that, and you still end up being very much emotional, just on the opposite scale. Like, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you're just a different type of emotional. So no one is ever just not emotional. You just fall somewhere on the emotional spectrum. Anyway, but I just thought that was very interesting that he said that. And when he said it takes a great deal of courage to assume positive intent and to have tough conversations. I just think that's so profound, because think of if you approach situations and approach people and approach circumstances from a place of, my goal here, my intention is to make a positive change and to make a positive difference. And these individuals, this institution, this country, this board or whatever, they are going to assist me in making that happen. If that's the intention that you go in with, the entire universe is going to back that expectation, right? But not only that, you're also, unfortunately, going against the status quo when you think from a place of assuming that people are not all out to get you. It's like you're an anomaly. You're a weirdo if you think that everybody's out to get you. I don't believe that everyone's out to get me. I don't. I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to a lot of things that imply that either, because I understand that everyone's reality is different. And I understand that we're all manifesting whatever we believe to be true and whatever possibilities we believe are true for us. I don't assume that the entire world is out to get me. Not as much as I used to. Like, I really don't. I don't have that general assumption. Are there certain aspects of my life where I have questioned? Yeah. But I never questioned the world. I usually questioned God. I questioned the higher source. You know what I mean? Because I felt like, well, if anybody can do anything about this, it's God. You know what I mean? I never just really go around. I don't go to the store assuming that people are going to be jerks to me in the bread aisle. Like, I just don't. And I don't have those type of experiences either. And that's probably because I don't subscribe to that narrative, and I don't give off the vibration that everyone is out to get me, and therefore the universe is not going to mirror that back to me. Not in my life. I see it in other people's lives. But then again, they have that belief system that everyone is out to get them, some underlying belief. And it didn't just show up like that. Like, something happened. There were a number of disappointments, or something transpired when they were younger, or maybe a specific event happened that the only way they could process it was to come to an understanding that, okay, well, you can't trust people. All people are bad. Everyone's out to get you. That was just kind of the underlying message of whatever the trauma that happened, right? So it's nobody's fault. People just aren't born just not trusting like that. It has to be taught. Things have to happen for your brain to decide and for your ego to accept that you can't trust nobody. You know what I'm saying? So it does take a lot of courage to go against the grain and to say, I'm going to be open and I am going to trust people, because I am going to decide that everyone and everything in my life is working out for me, best case scenario. Like, everyone and everything in my life is in my life to help me, to elevate me, to, teach me wonderful lessons. And like, if you come from it from that space, when you're not overly guarded, I'm not saying you can't be guarded in certain capacity. I mean, you want to be safe, right? You don't want to just walk into a dangerous situation blindly. But that's where your inner being, your spirit, your automatic fight or flight responses are going to activate if there's real danger there, right? But to just assume something that hasn't even happened, or just to assume something that you're projecting out into the future, That seems to be the norm. And let's not make that the norm. Let's make it normal for us to be projecting positive intent out into the future. There is nothing corny, there's nothing weak, there's nothing weird about being positive. Okay? Let's get that straight right now. Okay? Check out this article. I will put the link, it's here as well if you want to see it. But I will type it in and whatnot. But let's talk about that for a second. The word positive has tended to get a bad rap. Okay? And I understand because there's some people that do, the whole toxic positivity and, spiritual bypassing, stuff like that, where toxic positivity came about. The first time I heard it was in like the metaphysical manifestation community on YouTube, where someone was talking about how when they feel negative emotions and when they feel like something bad has happened and they want to feel their feelings, they suppress the feelings, the natural feelings, and they just try to be like, oh, well, everything's fine. They just try to soothe it with just a whole bunch of positivity and positive, which I can understand how that will be toxic because you're not acknowledging your pain. You're not acknowledging your emotions. So yes, there is a such thing as toxic positivity. I understand that. But positivity in itself as a whole, it's a beautiful thing. Like, let's normalize making it okay to be optimistic about life. To not approach every situation from a doom and gloom, woe is me, oh hell no type of perspective. It's okay to approach a situation that you may not really like or that you're questioning. Do your research, do your due diligence, do whatever, check in with your inner being, sit quiet. If you feel certain ways about it, if it triggers you in some capacity, sit with it, think about it, talk about it, ask yourself, well, why am I triggered? What is this bringing up for me? Listen to see what comes up, and that Rolodex in your subconscious will start pulling up things, talking about, oh, remember that time when Aunt Reese did this and Uncle Ronald said that, and whatever, blah, 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 you know what I'm saying? And you may be reminded like, oh, this is why I feel this way. This is why I'm reacting this way. This is how I'm responding this way. Okay, now I understand. It's not even the circumstance. It's not even the person. It's not even the situation. It is a perspective that I have. It is a narrative that was created for my little mind when I was a kid because of this particular incident or circumstance that was presented to me that I accepted as true because I didn't have the capacity to make the differentiation. Okay. If you have the capacity now to separate, okay, your conscious and subconscious are developed, and if you have the means to make that decision, to decide, to choose, because everything is a choice, to choose. Why not choose something that is going to make you feel better? That's just going to make you think differently. That's going to challenge the status quo. That is going to uplift you, elevate you, enlighten you, illuminate you, and just all around make you feel less angry and less on guard all the time. Why would you not choose why would you not choose to do that? Why would you not choose to move from a place of love and move from a place of, you know what? I'm not going to assume that everyone's out to get me anymore. I'm going to assume positive intent with people until something happens and shows up to me that makes me think, okay, I have to think differently about this situation or this person. But not to blanket your entire life, your entire existence, operating from the place that somebody is out to get me all the time. People are always moving from a place of negativity, from a place of a hidden agenda. Everybody on the planet is not operating like that. Trust and believe me. I don't operate like that. Some of y'all are not operating like that. You know what I mean? So the entire world does not operate like that. But why? Because we all know nice people. We've all had that moment where we're at the store maybe, and we're short on some cash, and the person behind us pays for our groceries or pays for our gas. Someone pays for your meal. Okay? Someone hands you $5 so you can pay the rest of your phone bill or whatever. Like, someone's let you get the parking space that they were waiting on. We've all had experiences where we have been blessed by people, strangers who don't know us from a can of paint. This is what happens when you lead with positive intent, assuming positive intent of people. They didn't have no hidden agenda. They just wanted to do something nice for you, from one human being to another. So we've all seen evidence of this. So let's start operating more from that place. Let's open our hearts more to the wonderful, beautiful positivity that exists and that will continue to exist, because the more we appreciate it and show gratitude for it, the more the universe will make sure that we have more things to feel grateful and positive about. Thank you. This is a long video. Take care and Happy New Year. Mwah.